Alright, we have the confirmation that Ukraine definitely was successful in the recent strike on the Russian military airfield in Kharkiv. That's the Kalushskaya Oblast of the Russian Federation. And yeah, according to one of the Ukrainian channels, there are some of the damages presented by the recent satellite image. This is the refueling station that was hit, plus as it is reported there were a couple of the hangars which were hit as well. About the Russian Kubinka airfield, well, so far we don't have those satellite images, I'm still waiting for those. Kubinka is more important in a way because it's the elite squadron of the Russian fighters, even though they usually fly older airplanes like MiG-29, Sukhoi 27, but they'll take the part in tomorrow's parade in Russia. Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go. And what's about the Russian parade? Well, definitely there were some of the leaders who arrived to Moscow more than before, because after all it's the 80th anniversary of the victory in so-called patriotic war, but in fact it is the Second World War. So here you can see Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, they met in Kremlin with huge flags. Why do I say that the Great Patriotic War is just the fake? Because it definitely is. The Soviet Union was the part that started the Second World War on the side of Nazi Germany from occupation of Poland. There was the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact unclassified after the Soviet Union collapsed, so everyone knows that fact. And to hide it, Soviet Union just came out with the term Great Patriotic War, which started from 1941 after Nazi Germany attacked Soviet Union. Yeah, betrayed them. But the fact is the fact. Soviet Union started and also it attacked Finland, which makes them to join Nazi Germany later on in the fight against Soviet Union. So yeah, Soviets did a really ugly stuff and Russia continued to do it even today in the war against Ukraine. But nevertheless, yeah, there are some of the leaders who arrived to Moscow. And with China it is understandable because it's after all not a democratic country. And here we have the Russian propaganda video, the compilation of how they meet and greet leaders from all around the world who visit Moscow these days, from Brazil as you can see as well, and other different countries. Победа, победа, our victory. Yeah, it's really far, Putin. You're really far from your victory in Ukraine. Saying honestly, your army is just bogged down. And here I want to share my thanks to the Patreon supporters and also the members of the channel. My friends, if you want to support the job that I do here on YouTube, you are very welcome to check out my Patreon page, which I put right in the video description below. Thank you so much for your kind support. Alright guys, we have some of the good news coming from the front lines in the Kharkiv region. Well, before Russia started this massive attack almost 1 year ago in the northern side of Kharkiv, they took several of the villages in an attempt to get to the Kharkiv city, but today Ukraine started one more offensive. Yeah, actually it was yesterday. There is the forest spot and let's see the difference. Yesterday and today we have this update. Ukraine liberated several of the fields, including this tree spot. It all happened not far away from Lukansi and Hliboka villages, so potentially Ukraine might use this road to go further and to go deeper inside the Russian defense. And yeah, that's the only change out there on the front lines for the last 24 hours. As we know, Putin promised some sort of the ceasefire, and definitely Russian army lowered the intensity of their strikes. Still they happen mostly in Pokrovsk, as it is reported by our military commanders, but in general intensity dropped dramatically. And yeah, definitely we have the confirmation from the Myko73 analytic. He says that Ukraine also moved on counterattack from Lipsy, Tolets, Lukiansi, taking quite large amount of the ground if we judge in general on those front lines. Because in this part of the Kharkiv region, Russia wasn't able to create the huge bridgehead. And about the Ukrainian offensive towards the Kursk region, the new offensive in Totkina direction, Ukraine went to the central part of this settlement. That's what we know from the latest information coming, but whether our guys were able to hold the ground, I'm not sure. But yeah, Ukrainian units were spotted out there. As it is already understandable, it is not the huge assault of Ukrainian army towards the Kursk region, it is just an attempt from Ukraine to deflect the attention of the Russian army from the Sumy region and from the other spots of the front lines, so Russia has to use their logistics, they overloaded, they have to send their forces elsewhere, not knowing where Ukraine might strike. And you know, I read what Strelkov says, yeah, Girkin Strelkov, who is now in the Russian prison, but he is still that patriot, and he accuses Putin once again for not doing everything correctly and for not putting Russia on the war rails fully, so he says that Ukraine might strike towards Crimea this year. Well, we'll see. From the ground it's not really possible, but landing operation could be organized. And yeah, here we have the update from the Miko 73. Definitely Ukraine went to Totkina using infantry forces. There are a couple of the parallel attacks happening and also 2 more big strikes towards Russian territory. So I would say that Ukraine has the partial success in Kursk region. And Russia again announced the massive evacuation for civilians in all of the neighboring settlements because it's the full-scale war happening out there. Nice video shown today, perfect weather, and you can see a Russian Buk air defense system is smoking. It is Buk M3 with some of the missiles, and the destiny of this vehicle is understandable. The module at least is gone. And yeah, there are some other videos. I'm gonna share those on my Telegram channel because yeah, partially I cannot show you them here, just some of the screenshots. Here it was the Russian assault on Ukrainian positions, but Ukrainians managed to give the fight, and yeah, Russians were defeated. And the vehicle is out there for already a long time. It's not the Russian one, from what I understood. Russians went there with infantry forces. It is happening somewhere in Pokrovsk direction. And yeah, Russians continue to move using their motorcycles. In many of the cases, that movement is in one way, like in most of the cases. Alright, good news for Ukrainian F-16 personnel training. Netherlands together with Romania will establish the common training center for Ukrainian army personnel. However, we know that there are some of the elections coming in Romania. The first round have passed and pro-Russian candidate got his victory, and there is pretty much high chance for him to win the general elections from the second round. So I would say that those kind of the initiatives relative to the pilot training of Ukraine are under the question, if obviously that guy wins. He's really in opposition to Ukraine and Ukrainian support. And we have some of the new videos from Magyar. He shows how effective his unit is against the Russian army. By the way, Magyar himself was awarded with Medal of Hero of Ukraine, the highest rank medal in Ukraine. And yeah, his unit does absolutely fantastic job. Also, Russia didn't launch any sort of the Shahed drones on Ukrainian infrastructure for the last night, but I guess it's just for the next 3 days. It happened also on Easter ceasefire. That so-called ceasefire is out there for Putin to convince Donald Trump that Russia is willing to make some sort of the peace, but de facto it's not like that. Trump is just being fooled by Putin. By the way, Trump commented that okay, Russia is doing a good step providing this so-called ceasefire for the next 3 days, but Ukraine insisted that ceasefire should be extended for the next 30 days at least. But believe me, Russia will never make it happen, and they will reorganize their army for the next 3 days. They will send more reinforcements and they will attack Ukrainian positions, especially in Pokrovsk, where Ukraine took the advantage and Russia wants to get it back. And you know, guys, Donald Trump's team start to realize that they're out there just as a fools for Russia in those negotiations. Just yesterday, JD Vance said that Russia asks for too much in negotiations around Ukraine, and Peskov, the spokesman of the Russian Kremlin, said that no, everything is okay. United States should respect Russian interest in Ukraine. So it means that United States should respect Russia ruling over Ukraine. He also added that the United States and Russia communicate almost every day on Ukrainian topic. But we see the outcome. There is no outcome basically for Russia or for United States here. I've told you many of the times, and I think I'm quite correct, that it's impossible to negotiate with Russia, with Putin's regime. And yeah, according to the data coming from our volunteers, Russia hit one of the civilian vehicles out there in the Kharkiv region. They did it with FPV drones, and also they hit civilian residential building using their gliding aviation bombs. So the ceasefire as before is not working. Yeah, the intensity slowed down, but it's not more than that. And yeah, our commander on Pokrovsk direction said that there is no ceasefire, so everything is as usual. The front lines are boiling, in Pokrovsk at least. More strange news. United States and Russia explore ways to restore Russian gas flows to Europe, sources say. But how can they do it without Ukraine restoring those North pipelines which were going straight to Germany? I think that even Germany wouldn't agree on that. And what's about Donald Trump's previous statements where he said that during his first term he was the guy who applied strict sanctions on Russian gas going to Germany, and now they want to restore it after Russia attacked Ukraine? It is madness. Zelensky, with his statement to Ukrainian people, he was just walking the main street of Kiev, Hryshatyk, today, saying about the nonsense which will take place in Russia tomorrow. Can you guys imagine Putin walking somewhere in Moscow on the main square or the popular street Tverskaya with his phone? Putin even doesn't have the phone. He doesn't have the access to internet, and here is the Ukrainian president out there. The street is not blocked, there are cars, people around. Yeah, it was morning time, not many people out there, but still. So that's basically the difference between Ukraine and Russia. Ukrainian president is not scared about his life because he understands that people in Ukraine, they share the same values as he. We all do not like Russia because they attacked us. And that is what uniting people, and many people actually would vote for Zelensky, not for his personality, but because he does quite a good job. Especially it is understandable, and it was in a way opening for me after Donald Trump started to criticize Zelensky, how they all told him to give up his power, to call elections, to resign, to go away, basically repeating what Putin usually says. And I understood that in this case Zelensky does everything good. And definitely there is the aviation collapse in Russia right now. Some people spend like 40 hours in terminal buildings, and many stayed for 15 hours on board of the airplanes. Just imagine that craziness. All of that happened because yesterday Ukraine launched the drone strike on the Russian Federation, especially in the Moscow region, so many of the airplanes diverted to alternates, to the much smaller airports with just limited infrastructure, and they cannot return back because, you know, there is the celebration in Moscow. There are presidents coming from Brazil, China, Serbia, Slovakia. Yeah, those two also cured themselves somehow and really wanted to meet with the Russian dictator and war criminal. So here we go, they arrived. But Russians, like ordinary Russians, they cannot arrive to their homes in Moscow because, you know, Putin simply doesn't care. Yeah, especially this picture with Russians, they're cosplaying the Russian soldiers, probably in the Russian airport terminal building. Alright guys, finally it was confirmed that India lost at least one of the fighter jets. It was Rafale airplane, by the way, number BS-001, the first airplane of that type that was delivered to India back in 2020, as far as I remember. So yeah, the loss is confirmed, but Pakistani side says that they've shot down 5 of the airplanes. There are some of the Indian sources confirmed the loss of 3 airplanes, but the evidence shows 1 airplane, so we'll see. As CNN reports, there was the huge air battle over Kashmir where 120 airplanes totally took part. Here we have the list of the systems which Pakistan uses. Those systems are delivered to Pakistan by China, and now Pakistan has the opportunity to test those in a real-life war scenario. The Chinese defense industry will learn a lot from what is happening now between India and Pakistan. Obviously, the data of use of those systems will be sent to China, so they might modernize their own weaponry based on a real-life scenario. What is interesting that this PL-15 missile has the range of 200 up to 300 kilometers. That's crazy range. It's air-to-air missile, and I do not exclude that it was used against that Rafale jet. Right guys, about tomorrow's parade in Russia. Should we expect some of the strikes on Moscow by the time? Honestly, I don't think so. Ukraine might strike some of the other infrastructure outside Moscow, but causing the massive disturbances by the time, for example, Xi Jinping is in Moscow, I don't think Ukraine would do that. I don't think that it's really profitable for Ukraine, but after all, we're gonna see. Also, Putin with his so-called ceasefire, so Trump may accuse, for example, Ukrainian side for breaking even hope for peace if Ukraine strikes something close to that parade, so we'll see after all. Nevertheless, the fight continues and I don't see the perspective for it to end, unfortunately. And yeah, today I've decided to make this short video because definitely there are not many news which were coming for today, but tomorrow we're gonna see maybe something big is coming. And now, my friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.